Thank you so much for tuning in to Everything Catholic again. And thank you so much for your support of this channel, and I hope all of you who are always here, you have been learning a lot, especially when it comes to the saints in the Church. Now for this video, I would like to share this clip of Father Joseph Iannuzzi talking about sufferings, trust in God, a little bit of exorcisms, and a few other useful lessons that we can all reflect upon together. So please listen to this.
So, mortification and sufferings. Sufferings can be imposed on us without our consent. Mortifications are taken upon ourselves, whether they're imposed by others or whether they're freely done by ourselves. The point is we willingly embrace them and offer them up. This in turn yields compassion. People that have no sensitivity toward the suffering of others. And there are a lot of people out there today that don't have God, that don't have hope, faith, love, and therefore they don't have compassion because they don't offer up their mortifications, their sufferings. And as a result, they become hardened of heart. So if a person is without compassion, it means they don't know how to offer up their mortifications to God. And Bishop Sheen was a great champion of encouraging people to do just that when he worked for the Propaganda Fide Institute. He would fly throughout the world to various countries, and the first place he said he would go, and he landed, would be the nursing homes, the hospitals. And he would tell the people who were suffering and dying, don't waste your suffering. It's of redemptive and salvific value. Offer it up to God. Don't waste it. How many people are cursing God, suffering in these hospitals, wasting their suffering, blaspheming, hating, because they had a poor plight in life and they don't see the will of God in it, so they curse God. And this compassion, the fruit of offering up of mortifications and sufferings, brings about purity of mind and body. And the soul that operates with a pure intention allows Jesus to operate within it with his own virtues and aids in the conversion of other souls. Jesus reveals, I greatly love pure souls, just as I am forced to flee from the impure. I am drawn by the pure as by a magnet to dwell in them. To pure souls I gladly lend my mouth to let them speak with my own tongue. And that is why they need not expend any effort in converting souls. This is important. Pure souls do not need to expend any effort in converting souls. With these pure souls, Jesus states, I delight not only in continuing my passion within them to perpetuate my work of redemption, but more importantly, I greatly delight in glorifying in them my own virtues. Now back to the soul, not expending any effort in converting souls. The soul that is pure does not need to expend effort in converting souls. All right, now, Jesus in the Gospels talked to the apostles about having the authority in his name, not by any virtue of their own, of expelling demons, converting souls by casting demons out of them and returning them back to God. Now let's take one example from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 9, verse 29. We come here across an unusual situation where the apostles, after having expelled demons from several individuals, fail in their attempt in this one particular case. Mark records a remarkable episode of Jesus casting out an evil spirit that his disciples could not cast out. The same episode contains Jesus' teaching about the importance of faith and trust. Now, there were other instances where the disciples were able to cast out demons, but Jesus explains that this demon they encountered, this particular demon, in Mark chapter 9, could only be cast out by prayer and fasting. And Jesus, in this episode, you must remember, was rejoining them after the transfiguration. This event happened right after the transfiguration, and a person in the crowd brought to Jesus his son, who he said was possessed by an evil spirit. And the demon in the boy made him mute and even tried to drown him and burn him with fire. The man had brought his son to Jesus' disciples to cast out the spirit, but they were unable to do so. And Jesus rebuked the crowd for their unbelief, lack of faith, lack of trust, and told the man to bring the son to him. And when the son was brought to Jesus, the boy was thrown into a convulsion by the spirit that possessed him. And the man said to Jesus, if you can do anything, take pity on us and help us. Jesus turned the situation right back on the man, saying, if you can. So this man, the father of the boy, goes to Jesus and says, if you can do anything, take pity on us and help us. And Jesus looks at him and says, if you can, adding that All things are possible for one who believes, who trusts in God. And the man was not sure if Jesus could accomplish this task. You see, he doubted him. So Jesus challenged the man to win over his trust. See, Jesus can do anything he wants, but not without us on earth. This is the way God ordained things. God had preordained from eternity that although he could do anything without us, that he would not do so. So Jesus has to elicit from us faith, trust, hope, love, in order for him to work these miracles. And the man was not sure if Jesus could at this time, but Jesus challenged the man that his unbelief needed to turn into belief. If he would believe in Jesus, Jesus would resolve the situation, you see. And so what did the man reply to Jesus? He said, if you can, which doesn't express a very strong belief or trust. And Jesus was seeing that the large crowd was gathering around. And he commanded the spirit to leave the boy, never to enter again. And after more convulsions, the spirit left the boy, and he appeared initially as dead. Jesus took the boy's hand, lifted him up alive and well. But this spirit that had possessed this boy, whom Jesus had cast out, was unlike any other the apostles faced. They could not cast the spirit out. And Jesus would soon explain that this spirit could only be cast out by prayer and fasting. This reminds me of an episode with my mentor, Father Gabriele Amorth. There was a woman in Bergamo, Italy, by the name of Giovanna, and her brother, a Salesian priest, brought her to Father Gabriele. This is back in the early 1990s, when I was in Italy, working with Father Amorth. Because no matter how many times the priest and others prayed over her, they could not expel the spirit. Father Gabriele prayed over the girl many times. He could not expel the spirit. He also had others assist him as well, other exorcists. They could not expel the spirit from the woman. So Father Gabriele Amorth, who was a great believer in Medjugorje, traveled to Medjugorje because he wanted to ask the Blessed Mother why they cannot cast the spirit out of this woman, Giovanna. So he spoke with Vitska, Father Gabriele Amorth, and Vitska spoke with the Blessed Mother. And the Blessed Mother said to Vitska, this kind of spirit that Father Amorth is trying to expel from this woman, who is innocent, who's a martyr, who's a victim, can only be cast out by prayer. Many rosaries before the Blessed Sacrament. Okay, the question now is, why can certain spirits can be cast out by the laying on of hands, by invoking the name of Jesus, whereas others are more resistant? And this exorcism must be repeated over and over again, many times. Remember even Jesus in the Gospel, with the blind man, spit in his eyes and laid hands over them. And Jesus asked the man, what do you see? He said, I see what appear to be trees that are moving. And then Jesus mixed spittle with mud and prayed over him a second time, and then his sight was fully restored. People ask, well, why did Jesus, couldn't Jesus have done this just once? Why did he have to pray over the man twice to get the full healing effect? Sometimes certain spirits that are persistent need repeated exorcisms. Jesus also used the mud, of course, to symbolize from whence man came, from the dust of the earth, recalling to mind God's creative activity in creation. So the dust mixing with spittle was a symbolic gesture. It was a metaphor. But the repetition also is not foreign to exorcists of a blessing. Sometimes the exorcist has to repeat a blessing, and this can go on for years. When Father Gabriele Amorth was asked if a person is truly possessed, and we're talking here about a full-blown possession, not an obsession or an oppression or vexation or an infestation, he said if it's a true possession, it can take, on average, up to 3 years of repeated exorcisms. Because it's not just one demon that is present in the soul. It's a legion. Legion is a lot of demons, and they have to be extracted, sometimes one by one, sometimes several in clusters. But at the time of Christ, each legion constituted 4,200 men. That's how much a legion was. And remember when Jesus asked, what is your name? The demons responded, we are legion because we are many. That is over 4,000 demons in one person. Now, I bring that up because the Lord talks about how when a person wants to obtain purity, they have to know how to offer up their mortifications, their sufferings that yield compassion. And this compassion brings about purity, and that this is something that is acquired through repetition. The measure the soul acquires compassion is the measure in which it offers up mortifications and sufferings, and as a result, it acquires the grace of purity. And the soul that operates with a pure intention allows Jesus to operate in it with his own virtues. And therefore Jesus said that. That is why the soul does not need to expend any effort in converting souls. The soul that is pure need not expend any effort in converting souls. So when Jesus approached this spirit that was very difficult to expel, that the apostles could not expel, he expended no effort. It happened immediately. Why? Because Jesus was the master at offering up his mortifications and sufferings. He was the master of compassion, both of which yielded purity. And that purity expends no effort in converting a soul and even expelling demons. And this explains why, in part, some saints who were not even men were exorcised and got rid of demons immediately, like Catherine of Siena. She was known to have just prayed over a person and the demons would leave immediately because she was a pure virginal soul. All right, now talking about trust, getting back to that theme. We are living in the end times and our trust is being tested. Our trust is being tested on all sides. I want you to consider that. The three pillars that will keep you on the straight and narrow and safe and protected, spiritually and even physically, are the Eucharist, the Blessed Mother, and the papacy. Remember St. Don Bosco's vision? These will never deceive you. They are guaranteed by Christ to not lie to you on matters of morals and faith, discipline, and governance of the Church. The Pope exercises these four powers. Only he does, no other bishop does. He has universal, supreme, and immediate authority that no bishop has. And this is why Don Bosco was given this vision as a foretelling of the times in which we're living, to remind us of the three pillars of our faith. The Pope was at the helm of the Church, represented by a huge vessel, and he was leading it toward the other pillars. Well, the Pope is a spiritual pillar, the papacy is, and these other two pillars, above which were the Eucharist and the Blessed Mother, were the object of the Pope's desire. He wanted to port the vessel, the Church, between the two. And did he do it? Yes, he did. There's the guarantee. So the Pope will port this vessel, but it's going through a turbulent struggle. So in the vision of Don Bosco, there were these other boats trying to take down the ship, and a Pope fell. The Pope fell. And another was elected, who was able to safely port this vessel at the safety harbor of the Eucharist and the Blessed Mother. And under the Blessed Mothers were the word Auxilium Christianorum in Latin, which means help of, that's her title in these end times. She's the help of us. And not only does God provide by means of these three pillars, so to speak, for our safety of the soul, but also of the body. Jesus tells us repeatedly throughout many approved prophetic revelations reserved for these end times that if you consecrate yourself and your family to the two hearts, to the Sacred and the Immaculate Heart of Jesus and Mary, you will be sealed by God's angels on the forehead with the sign of the cross to protect you from the day of the Lord's wrath. Jesus also tells Louisa that if you meditate upon the hours of the Passion, wherever you are, you and the place where you reside will be protected at least in part, possibly completely. So you don't have to run to this or that so-called refuge which don't exist. This is another scam. You have to go here, you have to go there. No, God is not a God of geography. So if you're born in the West and you have to go there and you can't make it because you don't have the money for a ticket, oh, well, then you're going to die. Too bad. That's not how God works. God is omnipresent. He's not bound by time or space. No, neither is the divine will. So these people who are telling you, sell everything you have and run to this refuge, don't understand the Spirit of God, who operates wherever he wills. He breathes wherever he wills. He comes and goes. Jesus said the Holy Spirit is like wind. You don't know where it comes or where it goes, but it's always there. So if you recite these hours of the Passion, no matter where you are, God will protect you in the place where you reside. That is a fact. And we know it's a fact because these hours of the Passion have multiple magisterial seals of approval. You cannot get any higher in the Catholic Church when it comes to a written form of approval than that. That's the highest there is. And if you don't trust that, then there's nothing for me to say to you. At some point in time, you have to trust. I'll tell you a little story of a family I came across. I walked into the house and there was a woman and she had a statue of Jesus Christ on the mantle above the fireplace, a statue of Hare Krishna, a statue of Allah, which is, I don't know, she got that because not even the Muslims have an image of Allah, a statue of Buddha, a statue of Confucius, and the list goes on. And I walked in and I looked at her. I said, what is all this? She said, I figured if I don't get it right with Jesus, the other ones are going to save me. I looked at her, I started to laugh. I said, where's your confidence? Where's your trust? If you don't completely commit to God, then God's not going to completely commit to you. You have to at one point say, I give my faith, hope, love, my life in this world and in the next life. I give everything I have, own, and possess to you, and I never take it back. That is the kind of trust God is looking for, and that kind of trust is essential to live in God's divine will. So if there are those of you out there that are asking me, how do we know whether or not we're living in God's divine will? There's your answer. It's 100% total unconditional divine self-giving without ever taking back. Jesus refers to this in Louisa's volumes as immutability. You never change in your decision. You don't say, Jesus, I give you myself completely today, and then a cross or a setback comes up and you say, Jesus, why did you allow this to happen? And I'm partially like that myself, I admit it. I have very short-term spiritual memory. I'll say to the Lord, I remember saying to the Lord about a year ago, this day, Jesus, I'm ready to offer up any sacrifice to save souls. Lay it on me. I'm ready. Halfway through the day, I was offering up everything beautifully. And then I got distracted in a conversation. And then something else came up and I took my mind, my vision, interior vision for a moment off of Christ. And then a cross hit me. And it was a heavy cross. And I said, Lord, what's going on here? Why are you permitting this thing? And then the words in my soul reminded me of what I gave the Lord early that day. And I said, oh yeah, I did ask for this, didn't I? So immutability is that trait that enables us to commit never to renege.
Well then, that will be all for the video this time. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. And hopefully all of you have learned so much from this video. And remember, if ever you have any feedback or suggestion, please let us know in the comments below. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for your continuous support, contributions, and prayers. And until the next one, thanks again for watching and may God bless you.